Okay, welcome to this month's webinar hosted by the MBCEA. And I just wanted to go over a few things that are coming up before we jump in. On the left side of the screen, you are seeing two QR codes. If you have not downloaded the MBCEA app yet, please point your phone at the appropriate QR code and download the app and start talking to us through it. Also on the right side, the next two upcoming monthly webinars will be on July 31st. Where have all the workers gone? So we'll have recruiting and retaining workers in today's market. That's going to be a great one. And then August 21st, we're going to have a panel on BIM and how it relates to your business. So make sure you sign up for both of those. I know the July 31st one is open on our events page, ready to go. The 21st in August, we're still finalizing, but that will be ready soon. Obviously, watch the newsletter. That's where we announce all the upcoming events. And then the other MBCEA Presents upcoming things are July 9th, our new member roundtable. In under an hour, you will find out if you are either using every single benefit that MBCEA has available to you, or you'll find at least one that you didn't even know existed. So I encourage you, no matter how long you've been a member, to sign up for that if you have not attended one of mine yet. July 17th is our AC 478 roundtable. We have some new criteria going into effect in August, and so we'll specifically go over that, but it's open to anyone as well. And there are a lot of chapter events coming up. The Mid-Atlantic webinar on July 16th will be open to all of nationals, so if that intrigues you, getting more done through proper delegation by Josh Quinter, I encourage you to sign up for that and make sure you've signed up for your particular chapter event that's coming up. Okay, I am now going to turn things over to Shannon Fowler. She is with Iron Bridge Wealth Counsel, and she'll take it from here.
Perfect. Thanks, Sasha. Let me share my screen here. Okay, tell me if you guys are good there. Nope.
You're good?
Oh, it was good. Okay,
Yep.
perfect. Give me just a second. I'll put it back up there.
There you go.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Okay, well, thank you so much for having us today. We're going to talk the integrated financial planning for you guys. And so what I wanted to do is just kind of briefly introduce myself. I'm Shannon Fowler. I've been with Iron Bridge Wealth Counsel now for the last few years. You're probably wondering why financial planner is with the MBCEA. And I have been a part of this association for the last 20 years. My dad is a steel erector, and so I grew up in this industry and just have a passion for the people in it and in this association. So some of you might recognize me from Charlotte, and it's just great to see everybody. I also have my colleague David Gosling on here as well, and he is a partner with Iron Bridge. And so we just want to make sure we let you guys know up front. We just appreciate you hopping on. And we want to make this time as valuable as possible for you, right? So, especially as business owners, you guys got a lot on your plate. We're in your busy season, right? So, we're not here just to read off a bunch of slides or talk at you. So, we'd like, if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to ask them. And we want this to just be super interactive. And just make sure that it's relevant to you. So don't be afraid to drop them in the chat or, just speak up. We're happy to go off script, skip some slides, whatever you guys find most useful. David, did you want to say anything any more about yourself or?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll let you take it from here.
Sounds good. So essentially, when we're talking financial planning, right, what is it and why do we do it? A lot of times if I say, somebody will say like, oh, well, what do you do? And I say, oh, I'm a financial planner. And they'll say, oh, well, that's awesome. My brother-in-law is a financial planner. And a lot of times they're very different. So financial advisor and a financial planner is very different. We'll talk a little bit about that. But financial planning is much more comprehensive, right? It's looking at everything in your entire financial picture, and it's not just the investments. And so studies find that individuals with a formal plan, and an advisor, they tend to be 2 to 4 times wealthier than those without. And so think of it, just like running a job, right? You wouldn't run it without a plan because you risk the, cost overruns, missed deadlines, unintended consequences. It's kind of like a job site without a foreman. And so that's essentially what financial planning is. So we're looking at cash flow, taxes, insurance, retirement, succession planning, estate planning, all of those things. And it's really designed to align your personal and your business goals, because a lot of times your business is your single largest asset. And so those lines often get blurred between personal and business. And so how do we kind of keep those separate, and have that plan to really drive the recommendations for what you need done? So just think of it like the blueprints you guys use every day, to erect your buildings, right? And so, like I said, this is a list of kind of like all of the things, areas that go into financial planning, but they're not listed in order of importance. A lot of times financial advisors or an investment advisor is only focusing on the investment piece, where we as planners are focusing on all of these different pieces. And like I said, it's not an order of importance. It's what's important to you at the time we're working together. And then we're making sure that we are really going over all of these things, because they're all equally important at different stages in your life. And so it's really just a matter of where you're at, where you start. And so sometimes clients they'll have an investment person or, an insurance person. And a lot of times you've done different things at different times with different people for different reasons. And so as a financial planner, we come in and we can work alongside all of those other people and really help with the coordination gaps that are usually found with going through all of these different things. Because what you might have done over here 5 years ago is now a lot different than what you need to do over here. And you kind of need a quarterback that's kind of running all of that. So all of these things go into that. So a little bit on financial planner versus financial advisor. So think of it like construction site, right? Your financial planner is like your general contractor, right? They're overseeing the whole project. They're coordinating all the moving parts. So they're designing your plan, overall blueprint for retirement, taxes, business exit, legacy. So we're making sure the right specialists are in place as well. CPAs, attorneys, insurance, investments. And we're keeping that timeline. We're keeping you on that timeline and making sure that it's aligned with your goals and where you're trying to go. So you guys wouldn't put up a building without a general contractor. It's just much easier to have all of those things in place. Whereas a financial advisor is really more like the subcontractor, right? So they usually handle just one piece. So they're looking at things like investments or insurance, which is helpful. Obviously, it's a piece of it, but they're not always looking at the big picture. And so, on a job site, somebody could install a great HVAC system, but if doesn't fit with the overall plan, then it just kind of screws everything else up. So bottom line is just having somebody that's able to help build all of those things together. David, do you have anything you want to add there?
What I might just piggyback on is what you said earlier, and that is, since you guys are in the construction industry, you understand the importance and the significance of a blueprint. And a blueprint generally isn't cast in stone. It's something that gives you, in large part, necessary engineered layout of the building. A few things you can make, but nothing significant without going back to engineering and the architect to make sure that it's not going to cause a problem somewhere else. Financial planning is the same thing. You've got to have that blueprint that lays out what the finished product is going to look like, or what your finished financial future will look like. And yes, you can make changes as you go down the road, but in large part, if you're going to retire when you want and under the conditions that you want, you have to start looking at that years before. It's not something that you're likely to wake up tomorrow and say, hey, I'm ready to retire, if I haven't done some planning ahead of time.
Exactly. And that's something that's been a key theme the last few years. We've talked a lot about succession planning. and just how important it is, and how important it is to start. The further out you start, the better off you can really align that with what you want. And so I thought you guys might find this survey interesting. So Principal did a survey. They've done this since 2007. And so they conducted an interview of 1,000 online interviews. And this is done in January. And so the respondents that were qualified to take the survey were they own a business. Anybody that owns a business between 2 and 499 employees, right? They own at least 5% of the business. They actively manage the business. They're currently employed either full-time, part-time, or self-employed, United States resident, age 21, and nonprofits weren't included. And so some of the key findings that they found for these business owners and key employees is that a record 58% have identified retirement as a trigger in their buy-sell agreement, right? So another one is the most common key employee benefit is life insurance. So this is up a record high of 53% is offer it to their top talent. Another one, a record number of owners have disability income insurance, 51%. So this is a big one that often gets overlooked, but especially with you guys in this industry, it's one that's super important. And then of the business owners with a business succession plan in place, 44% say that their plan is to either gift and or sell the business to family. A record high 65% want to offer more key employee benefits. That's also a common thread that we hear a lot when we're at, when we're meeting at these conferences or these chapter meetings. It's hard to find good talent. It's hard to find good people. It's hard to keep good people. And how do we really help your employees understand the benefits that you're giving to them so that they don't go down the street to the next guy for $1 more an hour? Because you might be providing all of these great benefits over here and they're either not engaged in them, they don't understand them, they're not aware of them, whatever it is. How do we keep the people that you want to stay engaged and from going down the street for a couple bucks more? Because it's not apples to apples comparison. So that one's usually a big one. And then over 6 in 10 owners have key personal life insurance to protect their business in the event that an owner or key employee dies. That's also a big one. Who's taking over the business? How's it funded? How do we move the needle on some of these things? The answer is usually with the planning. It just starts with that plan. And so thought you guys might find this slide interesting as well. Like I said, that the middle, kind of the middle of the pack is succession planning. It's that orange line. It's definitely increased. It's become more important in recent years and kind of dipped down a little bit there. But the top one is essentially key employee benefits has really jumped from, it was ranked 7th. Now it's up to 3rd place in the past year. So just a lot of different things that business owners are really starting to look at a little bit more. You guys are, you're in the day-to-day, you're trying to get the job done, but you need somebody that can kind of come alongside you and help with a lot of these things. And so the big thing that we hear a lot, what stops business owners from planning? You guys got bigger things to do, right? You're getting the job done. I asked my dad this a lot, like, when are we going to get this done? He's like, I don't have time for this. You want to push it off, do it later. We got time, all of those things. But it's so important that you guys are planning for your business, for yourself, for your employees. And so the survey basically said common reasons for stopping business owners from planning. You need more capital, right? You're just trying to get the day-to-day activities done, responsibilities done, trying to get the job done, trying to get money in. You're too busy with present challenges, putting out fires, all of those different things. Project gets delayed, materials come in late, whatever it is, you just got other things on your mind. And those are, top priority because you're just trying to keep the business moving, keep it running, keep money coming in the door. Another big one is you just might not be sure where to start. The stuff it can be overwhelming. It's not what you love doing. That's why we're here like to help kind of push that along. I like to say I'm pleasantly persistent to help people get things done because this isn't the fun stuff when it comes to your business. But it doesn't have to be so daunting or overwhelming. And it is super important. And so Principal also has a business needs analysis, which is an awesome online tool. And I can send out the link for that. It just kind of gives you an idea of kind of where you're at and where you might want to start. It just helps to kind of drive some of those conversations. And so if you guys want that, I can totally send that out, Sasha. So just let me know and we can talk more about that. But David, you have anything else you want to add kind of to those?
I would also say one other thing I might interject is that it's becoming more relevant, we're finding with business owners, and that is new technology. We're at kind of a crossroads of utilization to a greater extent of AI. And I realize that, AI cannot construct a building. It can't motivate employees. There's a whole lot of things that it can't do, but there is a lot of things that it can do to help us become more efficient. But at the same time, it's a whole new learning curve as well. And from that aspect, there are a lot of tools that are available to business owners, whether it's assessment tools or otherwise, that can help and assist in making their business run more efficient, alleviating some of the loads of some things that we find tedious or not fun. And so it is another aspect that has really come into its own.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so when it comes to financial planning and all of these things, how do we craft a more unified financial vision? Like I said, your business is likely probably your largest asset. And so how do we kind of tie all of these things together? We want to start with, a lot of times when we're meeting with clients, we're sitting down to really kind of deep dive into some of that discovery. I like to call it's a more touchy-feely meeting. We're asking you the questions on why do you do what you do? Like, what's most important to you? What are you looking to accomplish with all of these things? It's not just about the metrics, the numbers, all of those different things. It's about what are you looking to do in your next phase of life? What do you want your lifestyle to look like now? How are you wanting to pass this business down? And so what are you doing to make sure you're able to leverage what you've built so that you can essentially, carry on with all of the things that you'd like to do in the next chapter? And so it just starts with that planning to just create a smoother transition. You want to think about translating those business milestones into personal outcomes, right? You've been grinding, working hard, building this business. Like, what does it look like on the personal side of things too? And then just treat the business as the financial engine. It's not just the income source. We're trying to, how do we maximize what you have over here? And I'd like for you guys to start thinking more like my dad was he's always so worried about making sure his guys are happy. Like, you're trying to keep the top talent, but you also have to plan for yourself as the business owner, like you would for that key employee, right? You want to think about like what benefits you have in place, what retirement do you have in place, what's the exit strategy? And so just like for you guys to think more, you got to think more about yourself too. Because without you, the business doesn't, we know that the business likely doesn't run as well. And so you got to be taking care of yourself too. The business translates into the personal quite a bit. It's often very intermingled and, there's some blurred lines there. So some framework for turning the business success into personal wealth. Think about every year you guys are, business profit targets. Same thing goes on the personal side. Like, what are you saving for retirement? What does that look like? In terms of business exit value, what's the business worth over here? What's your retirement timeline? Those kind of go hand in hand, right? You got your, maybe you have annual revenue goals. You grew by 20% last year. You're looking to grow another 5% this year. What are you trying to do there? Well, you're also probably trying to figure out like, well, hey, what if we bought a vacation house? Hey, what if we have to put the kids through college? Like, what do those different things look like? So while you have the business stuff going over here, you also have the personal going over here. How do we, kind of maximize both of those and make sure that we're looking at everything? And so using this kind of structure just helps with the more intentional growth. What did they say? Ben Franklin, I think it's Ben Franklin, a failed plan is planned to fail, right? So it's just making sure that we're getting this stuff done. And with this, big reason why it matters, it's business and personal goals they often compete, but they don't have to, right? So when we can align those and we are, looking at all of this with the planning, they can essentially fuel each other. And so then you just have more peace of mind with everything that's going on, and you know exactly kind of where you're going. So a little bit on cash flow and debt
Shannon,
management. Yeah, go ahead, David.
if I can just make a comment, and you mentioned it earlier, is uh, our experience has been in working with business owners, irrespective of what industry that they're in, almost always that is their most. And in large part, we know for business owners, to the extent that you can self-fund growth and you can stay out of the grasp of the banks and credit lines and things like that, you invariably will try and do so, which means that almost always you're plowing every penny that you can back into the business to grow if that's a goal or objective, or to self-fund and keep your costs down. Um, and we know too that for most business owners, they're generally they just kind of put their head down and they plow forward.
Mhm.
And you watch time go by very quickly, and all of a sudden you look up and I'm now 55, 60, 63, and I haven't made a specific priority of how to turn my largest asset for people into something that can continue to go on, but at the same time can also fund you and your spouses and your family as well, your remaining goals and objectives, and that is to transition to the next phase of life. And we mentioned it earlier, that is a process that generally takes no less than 3 years, and ideally is somewhere between 5 to 7 years. Um, and so approaching that age where you might be in that and you have a succession plan or a way to turn that into a reliable resource for you and your family, that's something that we would have you give some thought to. And whether it's reaching out to existing advisors or reaching out to us or otherwise, we would suggest making that a top priority.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you for that, David. Kind of what you just mentioned there, right? Like separating the business and the personal, right? This is all basic stuff. You guys are probably doing some of this, but we see a lot where you're just kind of like swiping the card over here, business, personal. It's not really, there's not a lot of clear definition. You're like, oh, I'll just move it over later. There's a lot of blurred lines when it comes to this stuff. So just making sure you got separate bank accounts and credit cards for the business, right? The other big thing is paying yourself a set salary and owner's draw, and not dipping into the company funds just whenever you kind of need it. If you can kind of stick to a schedule with, work it out with your CPA, tax strategist, financial planner, and you're figuring out like, okay, what do I actually need each month to be comfortable? And having that be more optimized and systematic, and so that you're not constantly chasing your tail and dipping in over here. You're keeping that stuff separate, which then also, kind of going back to what David said, also on the same side, on the personal side, not using your personal that you've built up over here as well to fund the business. So just using, the accounting software, QuickBooks, whatever you guys are using to keep that expenses and income dialed in as much as possible. And then really just keeping that stuff separate, building up your personal cash and the business cash so that you're not having to float each other. Right. And so big reason why this stuff matters. It's just blurred lines lead to more confusion. It's missed deductions. There might be some red flags there. Your bookkeeper, your CPA, they're going to love you if you can kind of keep that stuff a little bit more separate. I know things happen. Obviously, there's going to be times where it doesn't work. But if you can keep that as separate as possible, it's going to be a big deal. Like you said, commingling funds puts personal savings and assets at risk. So we're trying to make sure there's clear definition between each of those so that we can really understand like what you have going on. And then it just makes the data, gives you that peace of mind so that you know exactly where you're at. So some actionable steps that you could take, this week, essentially just reviewing your current banking setup. Like, are your business and personal accounts truly separate, right? Set up that monthly owner's distribution schedule and stick to it. Talk to your CPA, talk to your bookkeeper. What does that look like? Does it need to be adjusted? The stuff doesn't have to be set in stone. You guys can, a lot of times it's a lot of feeling things out and seeing what works and what doesn't, and then going back to the drawing board. Just making sure you're tracking your business emergency fund. Aim for 3 to 6 months of overhead. Doesn't have to happen overnight. Just it needs to, you don't, a lot of times I tell clients, don't need you to have 3 to 6 months overnight. It's like you can gradually build it up over here, but it's something that's super important. Like I said, just work with your bookkeeper, financial planner to clean up your financials. And then this also kind of dovetails into the succession planning. So the clean separation, it also makes it easier to sell or transfer your business. We're going to have a lot more, better idea of what your business is worth and how we can really maximize that whenever we're planning for that exit strategy down the road, whatever it may be. And so another area in financial planning. Yep.
Let me go back, if I may, just add just a
for sure
few thoughts on the previous screen.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice that there is a lot related to cleaning up your balance sheet. Our experience has been that most business owners, to the extent possible, try to use their business as much as possible to reduce and or eliminate income taxes. And sometimes lines are blurred between business expenses and personal expenses. I've worked with various clients through the years where they have a fleet of vehicles, and one client decided to hide a Porsche in his fleet and deduct it. And another one decided to hide a nice boat. There's all sorts of things that we can hide on our balance sheet and in our books. But when somebody comes poking around and they're wanting to buy your business, and right now, the M&A firms and the private equity firms are actively hunting for things in the trades. We've had a number of clients that have been approached by large private equity firms to purchase their companies as an alternative to some of the other things that are out there, stocks and bonds and traditional investments. They really dig into your financials. And so by cleaning it up, it's going to do one of a couple of things. Number one, it's going to cause you probably to pay a little bit more taxes than what you were paying in the past. And that's never a pleasant thing. But number two is when you're presenting those to a prospective buyer, you don't have to go back and argue about whether something's an add back or not. And an add back as a term is, well, I spent X amount supporting a personal vehicle, or X amount paying for a personal vacation home, or you can go down the list. So these are things that, as you think about preparing your company for the future, sooner is better.
Exactly. Thanks, David. Another area, right, in the financial planning, risk management, insurance. Lots of different options packaged in a lot of different wrappers. But how do you know what you need, right? And that's where the financial planning really drives the recommendations. So most people don't even usually know what they have. It's kind of like they got this financial junk drawer of all these things that they've acquired, these different types of insurance policies, whatever it is. The policy you bought 20 years ago when you had a baby might not necessarily be the right kind of policy that you need now. So having an annual review is something that's super important to do. It's something that we do with all of our clients. This top one here, buy-sell agreements, that's a huge one, especially in this industry, making sure that you guys have a buy-sell agreement in place. A lot of times you might have an operating agreement and it might have some buy-sell provisions in there, but a lot of times it's not it's not getting down to some of the nitty gritty of what that buy sell could accomplish for you. And so essentially that buy sell is protecting the business if a partner dies, becomes disabled, or simply wants out. So what happens to the business if anything were to happen to either one of you, right? Or if there's a few of you. So it just provides clarity and avoids conflict amongst family and partners. And it can be funded with insurance for smoother execution. So like I said, there's a lot of different ways to slice and dice this stuff and wrap it up. Some key statistics on buy sells, right? It's very common. The lack of planning is very common. So 60% of small businesses have no formal succession plan in place. And only 30% of small businesses have a buy sell agreement, right? And of that 30%, 67% of that, they're not funded properly. And it's often just due to a lack of the right type of insurance or verbiage or whatever it is. So that's essentially something that we want to make sure whenever we're meeting with our business owners, we're looking at this stuff and making sure that it is buttoned up, because it just puts the business at risk if you don't have these things in place, right? Without a buy sell agreement, you might be facing forced liquidation. You might have legal disputes amongst whoever's inheriting, that partner's piece of the business. Could be loss of value during the transitions. And so it just matters because it offers smooth transition of ownership if anything were to come up. You can determine fair price, the business valuations are in there, that sort of thing. And it just protects you from, if you got two partners and you've been in business 50-50 and anything happens to this partner over here, well, now all of a sudden their piece of the business just went to their wife and kids. And now this partner is now in business with the wife and the kids. And is that exactly like what you want to happen? Or is there, does your wife and kids or your husband and kids want to be in charge of all of that? Who do you have in place to take over if anything were to come up, whether, like I said, death, disability, or somebody that, it just doesn't work out. You want to move on. So some of the key questions that you want to know the answers to is, do we have a buy sell agreement? Or do we have an operating agreement with some buy sell provisions? Like I said, difference is the operating agreement is generally less comprehensive regarding addressing the valuation formulas and the insurance provisions. Do we have a funded agreement in place, especially if it's life insurance backed? Is it funded properly? Is it with the right amount? What does that look like? Is there a valuation mechanism current? So we want to make sure we update it every 2 to 3 years or after any major growth. And does it satisfy the bonding requirements that you guys are sometimes, subject to based on what you have going on with these different jobs? David, do you want to add anything there?
Yeah. I was going to say, great segue. Bullet point number 3 is the valuation mechanism current. That has become very, very, very important the past couple of years as the result of a case, Conley versus the IRS, in which valuations were not current, structure of the buy-sell agreement was not current, and it resulted in the IRS suing the family on the method that they used and prevailing. And now it has not only caused a significant inconvenience for that family and grief, but for the entire business community because it now applies to all individuals. And it impacts it on multiple fronts, from the valuation to, if I have a funded buy-sell agreement, is the insurance owned correctly relative to the value of the business, and is it going to have an impact estate tax wise or not? So those are things that, if they haven't been revisited in the past couple of years, really should be revisited. There are things that we used to do as standard procedure when it came to buy-sell agreements that have now changed to minimize that. And then the other aspect too is that I don't know if many of your businesses are single owner or multiple owner. But the side to that is if you're a sole owner of an S corp or a C corp or an organization filing a Schedule C, the thing that you need to look at from a planning perspective is what will happen to your business if your wife is not very familiar with how that would function or work.
Exactly. And we have an ability to provide a informal business valuation. So it's a tool we use a lot with clients when we're just starting the conversation. And so it's not intended to be, provide a certified appraisal or market value for purposes of completing the sale. But what we can do is if you guys can provide just a little bit of information, usually it's the last 3 years of tax returns, we can essentially come back to you with kind of like a starting point on that business valuation, and it doesn't cost you anything. And so instead of you guys going out and getting a formal one, which obviously you will want to do down the road, this provides a way to kind of open up that conversation and get something going. We also will review those buy-sell agreements. So what we would do, what comes out of those things is that we can provide a summary of any issues and recommendations that can, like I said, serve as a starting point for a discussion. So with your tax, legal, planner, all of those different people. So like I said, not intended to be certified formal, but it's a good starting point if you don't have anything in place and can kind of help drive those conversations. So if you guys have any questions on that, just let me know. I'm happy to get you more information on that as well. On the personal side of things, right? You want to make sure, same thing on the business. You want to be doing a life insurance policy review, but a lot of times we see this on the personal side. Clients have a lot of different types of insurance and they're not even sure like why they have it or what it does or who it's for or when it comes into play. And so some questions you can be asking is, has anything changed in your life or finances since that policy was set up? Do we even need it anymore? Like, do we need something else at this point, right? Is the coverage amount still appropriate? Premium suitable and affordable? Because a lot of times, the Northwestern Mutual guy might knock on your door and sell you a whole life policy when you were, 28 or whatever it was, and now you're 48 and it's not doing what it was intended to do, or all of these different things. We see a lot of insurance that's sold to clients and it's not necessarily accomplishing what it was intended to do. And so through the financial planning, I'm going to keep harping on that. It just drives the recommendations for what you need insurance wise. And so you just want to be asking yourself these questions, asking your advisor, whoever's, doing your insurance, all of these different things. And then another big one we see is, are your beneficiaries up to date, right? If you've gone through, there's been, anybody that's passed away, or big one is divorce. If anything has happened there, like, have you updated the beneficiaries? Because we don't want, if you're remarried, we don't want your current spouse to find out if anything happens to you that you got your ex that's still on the policy. And so that's a big one that often gets overlooked, especially during times of transition. It's just something that kind of falls to the wayside. So making sure your beneficiaries are up to date, and then just understanding, do you fully understand what's covered and what's not? So that's something on the risk management side of financial planning that we want to dive into each year and at least touch base on. David, you got anything you want to add there?
No,
Okay.
I'm good there.
Perfect. So then this one kind of plays into the tax strategy, but choosing the right business structure, why it matters, because it just impacts how much you pay in taxes. There was a case where we had a business owner who was looking to exit in the next, 5 to 10 years. And they didn't really want to start planning until further out once they were getting closer. But what they ended up doing was they were able to change the entity structure, but per the IRS, it had to be done at least 5 years prior to the sale. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to do it. So if they would have changed it, 4 years out from the sale or whatever it was, it wouldn't have worked. So you want to be looking at this stuff and planning, 5 to 10 years out, because there's some things that you might be able to do there, legally, ethically, all of those things, but it ended up saving them a couple $1,000,000 in taxes, putting that back to them instead of the IRS. So that your structure also matters in terms of legal liability and personal asset protection, right? Right structure can just help you save on self-employment tax, support growth, prepare for succession, all of those things. And it's not just legal paperwork or like what's on your tax form. It's really designed, you want to utilize it and use it as a wealth building tool. And so common business structures, you guys know these: sole proprietors, limited liability, S Corp, C Corp, different things like that. We can talk through those, probably have a tax person that you're working with. That's why we like to work with your tax person as well, just to make sure that what you have going on is truly the right thing for you and your business. So just actionable steps to evaluate, right? Review your current structure with CPA and financial planner. Ask if it's the most tax efficient option for the level of income that you're bringing in and where you're at. If you're an LLC, explore electing S Corp status, especially if profits exceed $75,000 a year, right? And so just making sure you're working with a tax strategist. It's not just your CPA. So a lot of times people think, oh, well, I have my CPA, they do my tax returns, all of that. That's great. But you need somebody that's actually looking at the tax strategy behind this. And oftentimes your CPA might just be filing your tax returns every year. Their job is to keep you out of trouble, make sure that everything gets done correctly. You might talk to them once a year, get it done. But we want to be working on this stuff and looking at it throughout the year. And so just making sure that your structure supports the growth and succession of your business. And so reevaluating that structure is key before adding partners or selling or expanding. So it's continuously an ongoing conversation. Other things, tracking financial metrics, why it matters. I mean, this is kind of the basic stuff, but what gets measured gets managed, especially in construction. If you guys aren't, looking at the costs and things that are coming up, like how are we going to continue to grow? We want to maybe build in, issue came up on this job, we want to build it in to the bid on the next job just to make sure we're taken care of. Just helps reveal whether you're profitable, sustainable, you're on track for all of your goals. Tracking both the personal and the business helps you course correct proactively. Because a lot of times, like we said, everything's kind of like this. It's inflows, outflows, everything's kind of commingled. How do we keep those things separate and understand what's going on each side of the balance sheet? And then just looking at your numbers. I know it's not fun. I know it's scary. A lot of business owners, this is the one thing they hate to do the most, is just getting in there and looking at things at least quarterly, just to kind of have an idea of what's going on and where you're at. It just helps to avoid surprises and stay in control. So it doesn't have to be as scary. So critical business metrics for you guys, just net profit margin. Are you really making money after all the expenses, right? Job cost accuracy, accounts receivable aging. How long is it taking to get paid? I know that that's a big thing in this industry. Like in most industries, it's just making sure people can get that money in. Overhead ratios, your fixed cost structure sustainable, and then just your cash flow forecast. Do you have enough payroll? And for materials, right? That business emergency fund, paying for overhead next 3 to 6 months. Materials get delayed, the job gets pushed back, whatever it is, we want to make sure that we're planning for those things. On the personal side, right? Like key personal financial metrics, what's the net worth? And is it increasing quarter over quarter? That's where the planning can really show you. We have a dashboard that we use that can really show you like where you're at, where you were last month, where you were last quarter, whatever it is. And so we're making sure that we're continuously trending in the right direction. Debt to income ratio, are you overextended personally? Savings rate, is it the right amount? They used to say it was 25%. Now it's, based on inflation and all these things. Like, where is it at? What's right for you? Retirement contributions, are you funding that consistently? And do you have the right mechanism in place? Like you said, a lot of times you're pumping more money back into the business. You're trying to keep everything going over here, but you're forgetting to there's still some other things that you could be doing to save on taxes, provide, benefit to your employees. And so we just want to make sure we're aligning the personal metrics with the business. And so it just keeps trending in the right direction. So actionable steps to kind of implement that financial tracking, block an hour each quarter. Like I said, I know it's not fun. It's one of the hardest things for business owners just to sit down and do, but you got to be looking at this stuff. That's where the pleasantly persistent comes in, when we sit down with clients to go over this stuff. And so just using a dashboard or spreadsheet to compare metrics over time, involve your bookkeeper, your CPA, your financial planner. We want to all be talking together to make sure that we're optimizing the stuff as much as possible. And then, just setting 1 to 2 small goals after each review to improve some of the metrics and just celebrate the process. This is a little, touchy feely, but like know where you're at, where you're going. Don't be afraid to celebrate the good stuff. Like that's what keeps things going. And you're trying to give yourself the freedom to be able to do whatever the hell you want whenever you exit the business at some point, whenever that is. And so when it comes to, providing that value for the employees, we want to make sure we're doing what we can to keep the employees happy. But also, like I said, we want to plan for you as the business owner as well as, like you are a key employee as well. So making sure you're offering retirement plans, it's another benefit. Pensions are no longer a thing as much anymore. So it's all on us now to create our own revenue stream essentially in retirement. So are you offering a retirement plan which helps with improving the hiring and retention, right? Health insurance and group insurance plans, that's a huge benefit, right? And so are you continuously looking at that and kind of making sure that's the best option for you and your employees each year? We want to make sure we're looking at those things. We can look at profit sharing or bonus programs that are tied to performance, right? It's not just, we want to make sure that everybody's involved and there's some loyalty and people are bought into the business. And if you can help them see like where you're going and that they're coming alongside you, people are a lot more inclined to, keep going. It just creates a more sustainable business. And so retirement planning for owners and employees, I feel like ESOP is a big word. That seems to be a big one that I hear a lot when I'm at the conference with you guys and just hearing you guys talk about what you kind of have going on. And ESOPs, there's totally a time and a place for those, and they are great. There's also a lot of other options that you might not be aware of because they're not talked about as much because they're unique to different situations, which is why it's important to have somebody like a financial planner that's looking at this stuff, because there's different ones that provide different benefits, tax benefits for the owner and the business and the employees. It's just offering those plans, knowing what's available. You guys don't have to know all of those things. That's not your job. Your job is to, you're building buildings and keeping things moving and the business running and all of those things going. You shouldn't have to know what those are. That's why you work along someone that can bring that information to you. And then based on everything that we go through in the financial planning, we're evaluating like, okay, what do we need to do here? And so there's all different ways to slice and dice this stuff too. And just, we want to make sure that we're saving for retirement, offering it to employees, but is it the best for you and your business and everyone involved? David, you got anything you want to add there? Did we lose you? Can you hear me now? Did you want to add anything there? Are you frozen?
I did not hear your last part. My connection, I believe, on my end is a little unstable.
Gotcha. Do you want to add anything on the retirement plans? We see a lot of times clients don't realize all the different options that are out there. And so it's just having someone walk alongside you that can bring that information to you based on everything that you have going on.
This is an area that we have spent a ton of time on. Organizations that we have is cost. And, we've talked about different things. As business owners, and especially in the steel industry, you have faced increased cost as it relates to steel, labor. It seems about anywhere you turn, there's no good news. And then all of a sudden you've got somebody like us that's screaming or yelling, well, hey, you need to put a retirement plan in place. And you're just thinking, well, I don't need one more cost.
Right.
It is something though that to some extent, the IRS has made it a little bit more favorable for business owners. There are some things that can be done that if you don't have a plan in place and you haven't looked at one in the recent past, that it would be likely worth exploring. There's no cost or obligation there, because there's some things that you can do to benefit those that want, don't, and it can make it so that the cost can be offset by the benefits. And we look at, first and foremost, does mathematically this make sense? Can I pencil it in, and can I make it work that way? And so from that standpoint, again, I would say look at, reevaluate, even look at and reevaluate your own plan. And we do that from time to time, existing owners and with new.
Exactly. I think you're breaking up a little bit there, but essentially,
Come on.
yep. Essentially, there's just, you can pivot in some of these plans and there's ways to do different things. It's not like David said, we're not just trying to add another cost to the balance sheet. We're trying to provide a benefit that benefits you and the employees. And there's a lot of different ways that we can help do that. So when it comes to succession planning, like I said, this is a hot topic. So who takes over if anything happens to you, or what happens whenever you're ready to, potentially retire or kind of step out of the business, not be involved as much as you have been. What's your exit plan, right? Is it a sale? Are you going to family transition? Are your employees buying out? Or are you just going outside, like I said, to a third party, whatever it is? But we want to start planning, like David mentioned, at least 3 to 5 years out before you want out. But 10 is essentially ideal. It just helps a lot with the mindset as well, because this is a big decision, right? This is your baby. You've been building this for a long time. And the thought of, we like the idea of being able to go do whatever the hell we want to whenever we retire. But then it also, we're finding a lot of times people are still looking for something to do and be involved in whenever they do transition into that next phase. So what can that look like, and how can you do it in a way that feels aligned with you and what you're looking to accomplish? It doesn't have to be just a sale and peace out. Like a lot of times, especially with Ironbridge as well, the partners, they might be transitioning out at a certain age, 65, whatever, but they're still going to be involved in the business. But how do we keep the business sustainable and keep it going? It just helps preserve the value of what you've built, right? It's not like you want to just, set off into the sunset. Maybe you do, and that's fine too. We can make that work, but like, how do we make it all go along? It's more than just the actual plan, the succession plan behind it all. It's like the feelings and emotions and all of that stuff that goes into it. It goes a lot deeper than just on paper. And so, kind of creating that step-by-step plan. We're identifying what your long-term vision is and how you want it, what the exit timeline looks like, right? The 15-year plan might have been, you've been talking about it, and now you're 5 years out and you're still talking about the 15-year plan, but nothing's ever really getting done. You keep talking about this plan, but nothing's happening. And so that's something that we really help our clients kind of dial in and just get used to those conversations. Determine who your successor is. Is that family? Is it a partner? Is it your employees? Like, who is it? What does it look like? How do we make it happen? How do we do it in a way that feels good for everything that you have going on, right? Step 3, business valuation. Like I said, we have a tool that can help provide a good starting point for that. Then just creating that written plan with legal and financial input, having those people, those specialists in your corner that are looking at all of these things together, that are talking about how all of this works out in every which way. And then just communicating this plan to the key stakeholders, your key employees, like talking to them. Who is it? Do they want it? Is it your family? All of those different things. Another big part of financial planning, just kind of as we wrap up, is the estate planning. And what happens without an estate plan? You guys have heard me say this before. If you don't have a plan, the state will have one for you, and you probably won't like their plan. So this is one of the single biggest things that we help clients with is estate planning. And It's something that doesn't have to be as daunting and scary and overwhelming. It doesn't have to cost thousands and thousands of dollars to get it done. But it definitely, nobody wakes up and they're excited to talk about this. So this is where we have to kind of come alongside you and really make sure that we have these things done. But your estate plan is more than just transferring the wealth. It's deciding like who's answering for you if you become incapacitated. You got powers of attorneys tied to this. A lot of times people think, well, I have a will, so I should be in good shape. Well, that's fine, but that doesn't keep things out of probate. If you're wanting some more protection and privacy, that's where a trust might come into play. And it's trying to figure out what's the best option for you if something happens to you tomorrow. Like, would your loved ones know what to do, right? They're already going to have to deal with the grief and all of those things of losing you. Do you want them? I tell my dad this all the time. I'm going to be cussing at you, once you're gone, if you don't get figured out, because I am not going to be left here like trying to figure it all out. I need to know what you want going on. And so it's more than just death planning as well. Like, that's why, nobody wakes up, but you can use a lot of these documents for life planning as well. And I just tell people a lot of times it's one of the most loving things that you can do for your family. And so we have a tool, it's wealth.com, and we're able to help clients get those documents done. We are not an attorney. We do not practice legal advice, but it's something that is so important that kind of what David talked, going back to the technology that's coming out. It's, a lot of times when clients are sitting down with us, they often ask, well, can you do my trust? Can you do my will? And for a long time, the answer was no. And now we're able to utilize this different software and services, and it's all drafted by attorneys. It's state specific. There's a lot of cool things that you can do with it. It's not just a LegalZoom, whatever. But if you don't get these things wrapped up, probate can take 9 to 24 months, sometimes longer. And a lot of times the costs range anywhere from 3 to 7% of the estate. So trying to keep more money, like you said, back in your pocket instead of the IRS. David, you got anything you want to add on that piece?
I think you hit it. Very important is if you don't have an estate plan, your state will, and it's just not a good experience.
No. So if you guys have any questions about that, don't be afraid to ask. And if you do have an estate plan if you already have a trust and maybe it's 10 or 15 years old, whatever it is, we can also plug it into this software and it will give us a good summary of what it is. So instead of 40 pages of legal jargon that nobody cares to read through, it can give you a nice, concise summary of like, here's all the key points. Here's all the key facts. Is this still actually what we want to happen? It also allows us to create some flow charts that really kind of show you like, here's how all of this stuff flow charts out in terms of what your estate plan looks like. So it's pretty cool. It's an awesome tool that we are excited about. And so if you have any questions on that, just let me know and we're happy to walk through that. But I think we kind of used up all of the time, so I apologize for that. So if you guys have any questions, don't be afraid to use the QR code. Here's our contact information here. We're happy to just have a conversation. It's always complimentary. There's, if you have any questions that have come up from today or just anything that has been top of mind for you in the last few months or whatever, we're happy to just have a conversation. Like I said, I'm super passionate about this association and the members in it because they're kind of, it's like my dad, and I wish somebody like me would have come alongside him 30 years ago to really kind of help him get some of this stuff dialed in. He'd have a lot more options, at this point. Like, he's happy doing what he's doing and he's doing well, but there's just so many different things he could have done. So thank you guys so much for your time today, and just let us know if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Shannon and David. I know how much you care about our members, Shannon, how invested you are. You are part of the MBCEA family and have been for a long time. So appreciate the takeaways, the action items. Fantastic job. Gave us a lot to think about and things to start working on. So again, we appreciate it. And we will talk to you guys again soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having us. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.